Haven't spoken to him in a while, but kind of get the percolating feeling of football season again with the schedule release, and excited he's coming on with us. Longtime Miami Dolphin. He's on the Dolphins Walk of Fame, been part of the Dolphins TV coverage on CBS4 for years. Longtime friend of the program. Hello, Bo.
Hey, how you doing, Hawk? It's been a long time, and it was really nice to hear Jimmy's face or Jimmy's voice when he picked up the phone. always look forward to a little Jimmy time.
He's a talker.
So do we. So the Dolphins' schedule on paper, very difficult, but is this coming season, is it about wins and losses, or is it about this new regime and them putting their stamp on what Dolphins football is and will be?
Yeah, I think that's the case. Everyone is asking, how many. I go, look, I don't care how many games they win this year. The only thing I don't want them to go, I don't want to have an offer, but it's about, all the stuff that's gone on over the last 4 or 5 years, and the 10 years with Chris Greer that would draft players and then instead of developing them and then let them go with the team after 2 years, I don't like this guy, and so we're not gonna. So it's, to me, it's the new regime, and I think they believe in growing from the draft, homegrown, develop, and keep. And so what I'm looking for is a little bit of that. And I'm just looking for a football team that goes out and plays hard. And whether they're down by, 14, or whether they're down by 3, or whether they're ahead, just plays. I want to see, I'm tired of seeing guys that should be playing stand on the sidelines, and all the stuff that went on with Mike McDaniel and his so-called teammates. I'm a little tired of that, very tired of that. But I think this comes back to more of a, these guys come from the black and blue division, right? And they're both sons of coaches. They're football guys from the time they were in the crib, and so I think we're going to see more of that little old school, traditional, hard work, hard practices, expectations being, you like your expectations to always be higher than your guys are playing at, and trying to get them to keep reaching. And so that's what I'm looking for out of a football team. Just give me some good football. Just give me some basic stuff. Be tough. And play to the last whistle,
And to that point, Bo, like with Hafley and Sully. So let's go Sully first. He's working with $150 million dead money. So he's working on he's working on 50 cents on the dollar with the other GMs. And then Hafley, how can we really evaluate him if it is a 4-13 season? Because the record says 4-13. But to your point, I know how they're drafting, they're getting bigger. I think they want to be a physical team, Bo. But can we really evaluate them on this season?
I don't think so. Again, I don't. The wins and losses, I don't think that's the evaluation now. So they basically cleared out all the deadwood, right? All the malcontents, all the guys that were and look, you lose a guy like Waddle. Waddle was great, but he just became, put some shrapnel in what's going on. But you had the James Daniels guys and this guy and that guy, and that you guys for 2 years overpay them and you don't get any value out of them. Now you got a lot of young, 13 draft choices this year, and then they've got I think they've got right now 40 some odd players on 1-year contracts. So this is at this point, if I'm Sullivan, I would want to see my 2-year draft of 2 years ago be better than they've been, especially Chop Robinson, right? He needs to play better. And then I want to see the draft that you had last year with Kenneth Grant, you had Phillips, Biggins, It's Savaianaya. I want to see those guys be the type of players that you expected them to be when they were drafted, and then add this draft where Proctor and and Johnson, all these guys that you drafted, that seem to be solid guys, see them play up to a level that's going to tell you that this is not going to be a 5-year turnaround or a 5-year rebuilding. It may be a 2-year. I would expect this team to play much, much better next year than this year if they instill the basics, the fundamentals, and the desire to be a good football team that has to come from those players. And that's the message that I think that that Hafley has to instill in that football team.
Going back, Bo, to how the Dolphins have to finish out games this year and like you said, just play tough football, how important will these two games that stand out to me on the schedule, at Buffalo November 22nd and then at Lambeau Field against the Packers December 20th, aside from the ties that Hafley and Sully have, just the idea that this team could never play in cold weather. They'll get that opportunity later in the season to just go prove, look, maybe they can't compete with those teams because of the talent this season, like you mentioned, but that they can still compete in cold weather and kind of shake off the narrative that they're soft when it comes to playing in that type of climate.
Well, so that's one of the other things with Hafley and Sullivan that I like. They've been in Green Bay. They know what Green Bay is like when to play, especially in the winter. And if they can bring out, an iota of something to deliver to this team that could make them have some way that they can figure out to give them a notion of how to play better football in that kind of weather, since they've been in it, as much as any football team has been over the last, including the Buffalo Bills. I think there's not much you can do. I mean, but if they can have some insight in how to get those guys able to play in the game, in a cold game. So last year in Green Bay, if you remember that game, it wasn't overly cold. It was cold. It wasn't bitter. And that team played all right, but the tackling was horrendous. So, if they can figure out with these guys, get these guys in here and figure out how to get that defense to tackle better in the cold weather. And look, I don't know. Look, I come from California and I've been in Florida for the rest of my life. Don't ask me about how to play in cold weather. But they've played in a lot, and if they can impart a little knowledge, a little knowledge is better than none, right?
Yeah.
This
show thrives on little knowledge.
I was about to say, there's not much knowledge coming from my side, Bo.
Speaking of Solana, I guess,
right? he's the leader of unknowledge.
I hate to do it, but I had to get a little shot at Solana, not in a cruel fashion, but just just because I like him. You give him a little dig, just so really he's still on the radar.
Yeah, I really miss you too, Bo.
Hey, Bo, were you surprised that they made Devon Achan a top 5 paid running back in the NFL?
No, I'm not. I mean, that guy's delivered since he's been here. You know what he's like as a running with the run game. He catches the ball and then he delivers after the catch. He's got the speed thing. And he's a guy I've seen on the sidelines where he's been dinged up sometimes, and the trainers come over, he'll just push him away and go play. So he's a tough guy. He's given us all you can need. I think he's the third highest paid running back in the league between Barkley,
McCaffrey,
Christian
McCaffrey,
and so then it's Devon. So I think it's well deserved, and it's so it does another thing too. So you go back to Andrew Van Ginkel, go back to Christian Wilkins, go back to Javon Holland, go back to those guys that the Dolphins drafted high, and in 2 years you knew they weren't going to re-sign them, and so they kind of let them hang out there, And by signing Devon now, I think it sends a message to everybody on that team that, hey, if you play well and you get to that point, they're not going to push you to the last year of your contract and get into a haggling situation. They're going to take care of you. And I think that's what they did for Devon. And look, right now he's the best player you have on your football team. So you might as well pay him.
We know famously what your Dolphins teams were like and who the head coach was, and then you watched Mike McDaniel coach the team the last 4 seasons, and now you've been around Jeff Hafley as he's putting his imprint on the team. Do you notice this early on a visible difference?
Come on, Hawk. Come on. You're throwing the bait. I know you're throwing the bait out on me.
Do you sense a complete 180 from how this team will be approached by the head coach?
I do, no doubt. I don't see Jeff Hafley, calling somebody a teammate when he sprains an ankle. I don't see him saying, well, we have guys that come in late and I find them, but there's nothing else I can do. They just keep coming late. I don't see that coming out of these guys. Mike was a different guy, and it's funny for all this. And it's funny too. So he's in San Diego with Adam Gase. That should be an interesting coaching situation there. But for all
some
for all
long
this bluster
conversations between them two. That's a weird conversation about what they want to do on third down, Bo.
But so for all this bluster about him being an offensive genius, right? This guy that's got the new, he's creates these new things. It's odd how over the last 2 seasons, I think the number was somewhere between 50 and 60 passes were completed behind the line of scrimmage in the second half of the season. That's not the offense that they bargained for. So I don't think he delivered there, and I really don't think he delivered. I don't think he delivered as a leader of men, which has become a little bit of a cliche.
Yeah, but it was visible. I think everybody kind of realized that towards the end.
Yeah, and Bo, something we talked about
sometimes a guy would talk. I got to tell you, sometimes I would, I'd be in the post-game locker room and listen to him talk, and like 5 minutes in, I go, I don't even know what the hell he's saying.
We would play the sound, and we'd go, what the hell is this guy talking about? I'm telling you, I never saw someone more at a loss for words and just muscling through stuff than watching CBS 4 after the games last season when you were looking for anyone to talk to in the locker room, and it was just like another shellacking or another embarrassment, and you were just trying to muscle through, man.
Hey, where did they filibuster at? On the Senate floor?
Yeah.
It seemed like he was filibustering post game. Like, what are you talking about?
You know what? We were in Tampa. We were in Tampa 2 years ago for joint practices, and Sal Palantonio was there. And before practice, Sal came up to me. He says, "Hey, I got to interview Mike after practice." I said, "What can you tell me about him?" I said, "Well, I can tell you this." I said, "It's like walking up on a bush and poking your arms in there and spreading all the limbs around and seeing an acorn, grabbing it off the bush, and then all the bushes are going to collapse on you, and you're going to end up with just one acorn out of that whole little bush." So I saw Sal afterwards. I said, "How'd it go?" He goes, "Just like you said."
Hey, speaking of Tampa, Bo, my son just graduated University of Tampa, but for 4 years, you told me to go eat a sandwich at Wright's, and it took us 4 years, but my wife and I and son finally got to Wright's, and it absolutely delivered. That was an excellent recommendation, and my wife is angry that I didn't let her go there before.
What was this? It's the beef champagne or the beef?
Some big giant, like, a bow size. Hey, speaking of food, Bo, we've had this conversation on the show, and Crowder texted me that I'm not going to tell you which side we're all on. Do you eat in the bed?
No.
Of course not.
No.
Of course not.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Bo,
Yeah.
you want to, some
You know,
leftovers, go watch some TV.
He's a
midnight.
restaurateur, first of all. He knows where food
no.
belongs.
No, Channing, that's disgusting.
Yes.
Disgusting.
Right?
What are you gonna roll over and get you gonna roll over and a Frito's gonna go up your ass? What? I mean, come on.
Well, I eat meat, but you want a grilled cheese sandwich, maybe 5 blow pops and 2, popsicles at 1 a.m. You got to sit in the bed and watch Netflix with that.
Can you imagine?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I'm glad Bo cleared that up because I think Crowder will stop arguing this.
The only way I would do that if I had one of those like those beds, like the hospital beds where you can get yourself right and do that. But and maybe
even then you wouldn't feel good about it.
I think that's the only time I've ever eaten in a bed was when I was in a hospital bed,
right?
And couldn't get up, right?
Yeah.
Last night I had a Mikado salad and chicken wings in the bed.
He will literally go to the kitchen, cook something at night, and then purposefully bring it back to his bed.
Well, look, I've done that. I've got up and I've cooked stuff, but I sit out in the living room and eat it,
like a man.
I sit on like a man, right?
Like a man.
What does your
mortgage?
Your wife say
I
about
want to
that,
eat.
Channing? What does Mama say about that?
We just celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary, so she just kind of deals with it, I believe, Bo.
It is what it is.
That's not the only thing. I'm sure that's not the only thing she deals with, Channing.
And my personality, and everything else, pretty much.
Pretty much the entire package. She actually describes him as Mike McDaniel. You get the one little acorn, but everything else falls apart.
Out of the whole bush, she got one acorn, Bo.
We'll see you, Bo. This is why I don't have Bo on too often.
Right.
We end up getting in trouble by the end. By the end, we've got Fritos going up our asses. I don't know what's happening. We'll see you, Bo.
All right, take care.